Welcome back for part 11 of this visuals tutorial series. We're going to be diving back into bunkers, looking at a bunch more topics with them today. So far, we've gone over some general stuff with kind of aligning them, getting fingers where you want to point, kind of generally how they work with the land, that sorts of stuff. Today we're going to take that a couple steps further. So the first thing with bunkers that we haven't really talked about too much is that a lot of the time, one single bunker can have multiple functions in a visual. Sometimes they're a little more singular, where we'll get bunkers, say, like these, which are generally kind of just going up towards the green, that kind of stuff. This one here, maybe. But other times they start doing a lot more things. So for that, we can go to hole 9 to start. This bunker right here, it's not necessarily the best example, but it's doing a couple different things. I don't know how obvious this is to you guys, but let's just use default. So this bunker here, I think I've talked about it before. It sits mostly in line with this land movement. And the main things this bunker is doing, it's actually kind of good to use some measure lines for them, perhaps. It kind of helps with going through and then up this way. But we also have, if you notice the way it's kind of tying into this line movement, then these fingers, sorry, really crappy camera movement. These fingers are pointing off to the side a little bit. So this kind of helps align it with this bunker over here. This is not necessarily the best bunker for an example, but this one is trying to throw the eye this way as well as connect with this line movement and push up both to the green and to this right green side bunker. So it's really trying to do multiple things. Almost even tie this space from here in a little bit too, and kind of go up that way towards the green. And then on hole 4 first. On hole 4, these are starting to do a little bit of the same. This one here in particular is a lot of what keeps these three working. Now this one here kind of throws off this way a little bit to the side with these fingers, and then a little bit up towards the green, and even a little bit out this way towards this bunker. And in this case, it's trying to take all these additional features, the green side itself, and just kind of pull things together. It's to the point where, say, if you take, this isn't the best bunker, but if you take any one of these 4 main bunkers and were to cover it up on the screen, you would see that it loses a little something. And that's because these 4, the shapes of them are really set up to work together with each other. We can look at this back bunker here. It's playing mostly down towards the green, but a little bit off towards the right. These 2 are playing in just slightly. Not the best, but it's still there a little bit. And then these 2, very much so, as well as kind of just, this one's also pointing a little bit this way with this finger towards the green and filling space. So it all kind of centers around here, which if we look at it is roughly the center of this green side. And then that back bunker ties into this. These bunkers almost tie in a little this way. That's kind of the idea that goes into this. And it's enough of a jump that it's not something you want to go into your first go around with bunkers. So we kind of looked at them throwing the eye off to various different places and that kind of stuff. They can also really help a whole turn. And for that, we can come to 6 here, which is, this is a pretty good example. So if we look at other stuff now, we can kind of look at what this bunker is doing. It is working up this way. It's pointing this way and this way. It's also kind of tying in a little bit from this bunker, but that's a touch more advanced. We haven't really gone into that yet. And it's also kind of pulling this way and around to the right. Unfortunately, I'd have to delete those. If I just do this, you see the way it follows, sits in the land movement here, and with the fairway shape, it's kind of helping the hole feel like it turns around like this. This bunker is helping the hole have that sense of motion and turn to it. This is a little bit better execution than the one on 13, but it's still kind of the same idea here, where the goal is to get the hole to feel like it turns, and then this bunker throws off to here, connects a little to here, pushes up towards the green site with its shape, and this bunker here does a little bit the same. The finger's kind of throwing off to the right in combination with these left. It gives the sense of the hole kind of going around it. This is a more advanced use, which will take a little bit of time to kind of get a feeling for. But it's another very good thing to have in your toolbox, or at least be aware of. And then also with multiple bunkers, I guess 7's probably the easiest example to start at. When I mentioned kind of taking them and pointing fingers in the same direction as a way to get them to feel like they line up more. So here we have all these fingers kind of going this way. On the right side, this bunker and this one tie in pretty nicely. It pushes a little bit towards the left, towards this back right one by the green. It's maybe easier if I zoom in a touch for this. Yeah. And then these two here, this bunker, as you can see, it's kind of going up towards the green, towards these bunkers, but it's also throwing off a little bit towards this side. Maybe not quite enough to catch this bunker, but certainly enough to lead towards the other right green side one. And then the bunker is up by the green. You can see the way this sits a little bit with the back one. These fingers there link up pretty well. This back putt works pretty nicely. And then the land movement from here kind of just also continues towards where the green is. A lot of this, like the outer edges here, having the fingers pointing in a similar direction is part of what makes them feel a little bit more connected, in addition to the bunkers just working off of each other in various different ways. And also we can go back to 4. I've already been through most of this one. But if we look here now and pay more attention to the finger direction, it's kind of pointing between. If we were to draw some lines, the fingers mostly point between this way and this way. They're all kind of in that range, maybe a little further out like here. So they're playing off each other a little bit in that sense. Even these short bunkers here are doing a little bit of the same. A little bit out this way there, and a little bit up here. This bunker is mostly just filling space. Hey Stiff, how are you doing? Then we can kind of get into that. That's the first part of the topic. The next part is going to be... Actually, let me see. Yeah, sometimes it can be easier to get bunkers to work better when they face towards the player a bit. More specifically, we can see these not so much. They're still tilted slightly towards the player. I just kind of went to them randomly. Then I think, was it 14 in particular? Yeah. So 14 demonstrates some hits and some misses. If we notice here, we can see how these bunkers are all pointed a little bit towards the player. They're all mostly kind of pointed this way, even though the hole is moving this way towards the green. And then these are kind of helping. This one could be pointed a little more towards the player. This is the bunker that I would tweak if I were to tweak any of these. This one kind of ties in a little bit this way and also up this way. And this one here kind of points in a similar-ish direction to these and also this way a bit. And then a couple more topics. These are more general. You can kind of get a sense of when they're maybe off a little bit and when they're not. So scale with bunkers. And most of the time, this has to do with just getting the general size to mesh with the area around it and where it is, and still a sensible amount of space. The main things to pay attention to here, so like, these all fit pretty well. You see how kind of this is near where the edge of the playing corridor is. The bunker fills a reasonable amount of space. Size-wise, it looks pretty nice with the other ones here. An example of where some of that stuff might not be as good, and where things could have been tweaked, would be, say, on hole 9. This bunker here, to me, yeah, the land is sculpted a little bit, so it's not bad, but it doesn't fill up as much space as is there. There should be a little something else from this bunker, to my eye, back in here, maybe? Or some other slightly more aggressively sculpted land, but that would be out of style in this course. So perhaps I could extend the sand a little bit back this way. And in other places, you have just kind of fitting the general location. This bunker fits reasonably well where it is. This one too. This bunker here is larger, but it still very much fits. This one's smaller, it fits okay. Then we can go to, say, you go to hole 1 here. Size-wise, this one's about right. This one here is also about right. The green side ones are about right. But they're still all different sizes. They're just kind of approximately a good general size and shape for the area that they are. Then you can go to 15 here, which has not a ton of size variety. 16 does. So for 16 here, we have these two here. They're okay. This one here takes up a relatively decent amount of space. Maybe you could argue making it a little larger this way, but it's fine. It's good enough. These behind the green side are approximately right. You can also see after what we've been through how the shapes here are playing off of each other. There on the outside here, the outside here. And they're all, this front one's kind of pointing up this way, and the back bunkers at the same time are all pointing down, kind of towards the green and aligning with the front bunker. Well, front bunkers if you count this one too. This is a small little bunker, but considering the space it's in, you wouldn't look at it and say, oh, this bunker's way too small. Because it's not. It's kind of just fitting what's there. And in terms of size variety, this is something that I struggled with a lot at first. There are a lot of styles as well where you might use bunkers of a similar size. I know I did that on my first course. It was kind of part of the style. T. Petra did that intentionally on Tufts Club in TDC 19. I don't think that course is ported, or not sure if it ever will be. That was an example of a very good course that had bunkers of a similar size, but that was kind of on purpose. You'll find that over time, kind of keeping in mind the amount of space that bunkers have to fill, and kind of just keeping this in the back of your mind that your gravitation towards a decent size choice for bunkers will improve over time. There may be some instances at first where you kind of have to say to yourself, you know, I really need to try to work on getting more variety in the bunker sizes into this course. But over time, it just happens more naturally. And then these in particular, is there any hole in this course where it's obvious? It's much more obvious on my current course than anywhere on here. We're there. I could hop onto it for a quick second. I don't think there's anything we can see here. There are a couple instances on my course as well where I might be able to say, or both of these, where I could say maybe the size isn't right on. And that's something you'll get better at with time. So I go here for a quick second. Sorry. So let's just go to any hole. 3 is fine. It's not quite done. But you can see here you have bunkers of 13 is even better. Various different sizes and shapes. And they all kind of feel about right for where they are. Here, if you want a bunker, you don't need much, just a little something. This spot here is kind of more of a carry framing bunker, taking up more space. And also the extra size here helps it stack nicely with this. You can see how it's kind of throwing off a little bit towards the stuff on the right side of this whole corridor. As well as going up this way, kind of down the fairway and towards these bunkers over here. They're all completely different sizes here. And you kind of get a sense over time, like say we have this small bunker here. We'll get into why the size is kind of right with that when we get into stacking. But you'll get a hang of that with time. So next, we're going to back out of TGC, well, PGA 2K21. It's missing some trees and plants. Starting this weekend, planting. So, we're going to take another quick field trip to, you guessed it, Cypress Point. Shocker, right? So now we can dig into some more meat on the bones of this course's bunkering. I have two different places to look at stuff here. We have photos and we have Google Earth. You can kind of use some of both. First, I'm going to go back to hole 11. And we've kind of looked before at the macro flow and general stacking, but we can start to look at some more details with this now. So, obviously we'll look at how bunkers play off each other. One of the first main concepts, or main things to keep in mind when you look at bunker stacking, is kind of getting the relative sizes to play nicely with each other from a distance. And if you just think about that immediately, and you think back to what I showed you on 13 on my fictional course, that can explain some of why the variations in bunker size in that cluster off to the left of the hole work pretty well together. So I'm going to go down here to 11. I think there's no great view for this on this site. But here we can start to see just various angles. We can see how this bunker here plays really nicely shape-wise off of that little bit there. Also playing off of this bunker itself. And the way the shapes work around towards these greenside bunkers, this one here also pushing up towards the green. And if you see the way these here sit in relation to the green site and this bunker, they kind of line up right there where there's just a little hint of sculpting. These parts of the shapes play off each other and give you that stack in a nice looking package. There's a little bit more to this hole if you really dive into it as well, so I wanted to have Google Earth up too. Main things here, so we can start looking at a lot of things that have been mentioned so far. We can look at this bunker here. Now we can see this has multiple functions. It's pushing up this way a little bit and a little bit around this way. The shape, sculpting, and the way it lines up with these bunkers out here, the way you kind of go from this little finger there to here, and then this lines up with the stuff above it there, is helping this to turn a little bit. We can come out a bit here, and we can go to the next layer. So out here, we can go from any angle, and these bunkers work almost perfectly. So here we're at, instead of looking at these from the left side over here, where we're on the Google Earth, or the photo, we're looking at it from the right. And this still aligns very nicely this way. We can see the size here and here matches really nicely with what's behind it, with the green side bunkers. And this little strip of grass here works really nicely to draw the eye right on through them towards the green site. In addition to this one still playing up to here, up to the green a little, and a slight bit off to the left. Mostly up to the green and to the right green side bunker. And then as the angle changes, from here, they still sit just about perfectly. From here, they still sit just about perfectly. Even from here, this still sits just about perfectly. There are very few angles that you can look at these bunkers from and find that they do something just really weird. Even from here, it's not bad. When you have that kind of quality from any angle, that's when you sure as hell know what you're doing is right and it fits. So that's kind of some of what goes into the stacking. And we come out to 13 here. I guess let's do photo first. Photos of 13. I don't know where it's best to see from. We can do the T view potentially. This is quite instructive as well. As you can see just how much the land is coming in off the left, as we looked at before on this golf hole. Now, these bunkers are kind of just pulling from that. This bunker here looks like it's mainly driving to the right and towards the green. And these bunkers left, you can see, this one extends a little farther out than the small one behind it. Let's go up one step. A little farther out than the small one behind it. And this kind of helps it come back into the left towards the green as well. And then notice the way these work together very nicely. The shapes stack kind of like this. And they're both, the net effect is they go a little bit this way and this way. And then these over here. If you pay attention to the way this shape sits with that back left one and a little bit in there, it matches really nicely, which helps it kind of go up this way, through this way, down this way, and these two link up a tiny bit as well. In addition to this bunker here kind of playing off of this movement, and even helping with the help of this bunker, which is a bit more complicated, to tie things in pretty nicely. So in this case, the bunkers are all starting to work together with each other. It's the kind of thing where in some instances, if you change one bunker, you might have to change another. You might end up changing 3 or 4 of these bunkers as a result sometimes, if it works. If you're making a change to try to get it to work, that's not necessarily the case. And I think the ground view for this one isn't too much more instructive. I think we saw the vast majority of what there was to see from 13. Might be mistaken. Yeah, there's not too much more to see. Other than from up here, you can see how it kind of just works through. It's all the same stuff. This part this way. We'll get to that later. And next we can come back to hole 4, which I know I went through in the previous stacking portion, but not without a reason. Now we can start looking at how these bunkers all play off each other. And there's a lot going on. 4 here. So on this hole, let's make it bigger. The main one would probably be this large bunker short left of the fairway. We can see that it's pushing up this way, towards this bunker, kind of in the general direction of the green. And even this part out here is pushing up a little this way and out this way. The little bunker out here is kind of bringing things in off the left, but it's also working off of this portion of that bunker. And then this here kind of works together with this and that little part of this one. The bunker up here is drawing a little bit from that short right one and a lot from this central one here. The central one is kind of pushing this way, a little bit right towards this bunker, which then is coming back that way, and even a little bit off to the left here towards the left green side bunkers. So this one then comes back that way, and if you follow the shape of this bottom, like kind of down and up around like that towards the green, we'll get into more details on that topic later on. So that's what's going on here. And then we can look at hole 3. So for hole 3 on Cypress Point, we don't want that zoomed in one. That's fine. So here we can see as well now. If you see how these bunker sizes there line up very nicely, kind of draws through the middle generally in the direction of the green, kind of points in the same direction as this one here, which is going that way. Then we have this one here going off this way. And this important bunker right here, at least if this bunker were not there, visually, something would need to replace it. Why? Because it not only connects these bunkers over here, fits nicely into that little shape there, it's also kind of pointing off towards them. Also from here, in the general direction of the green, this finger's kind of pointing towards the green, but this finger's also throwing a little bit towards these left green side bunkers. I don't have a good way to cover this in the demonstration for you. But if this bunker were not there, you would need something to replace it. So we can start to get into, we've looked at some stuff with stacking. I gotta unplug and get the controller on. Give me 1 second. All right, it's good. There we go. You're going to spend some time in a course with very few bunkers that don't really do very much. It's going to be Yoho River. I'm sure none of you have seen this course before, so you're going to be very surprised when it pops up. Continue playing. Oh. We're going to start by looking not at stacking, but just want a couple more quick examples of some of the previous stuff.
Back on the course, and it would appear you had a pretty good little round going.
So we're going to grab the... Oh, keyboard's not plugged inside the wall. Handy dandy PC roaming cam. And we're going to start by going over to hole 6. Right in here. Down. And I guess I'll zoom things in a little bit. Just help some more detail from the distance. I'll just go 25 to 30. Good enough. Okay. So here. One of the first things you will notice is that the bunker fingers here, here, even a little bit here, even a little bit here, and here are pretty much all pointing in the same direction. Not surprised to see that now, are you? And if we start looking again at what they're doing, this bunker here, these two in particular are quite good. It's pushing up this way. Not so much in playing into this one sculpting wise, and quite a bit out this way, just kind of down the hole in general. And this one here is throwing a little bit back with this one, up this way towards here, a little bit out to the left towards here and down the hole. These are working together pretty good. And then when we come up here, we start to see a little more stacking going on, where see how these play a little bit into each other? And this right here is the same bunker. That's something else in Stanley Thompson's style in particular. With these, sometimes even with the bunkers on my current course, they have some of that to them for that reason. It's part of the style. This here I think is the same bunker. But you can see the way from a lot of angles, these line up pretty well with each other, kind of going up to this one, and then the next one, and then the green site. And from here, you see much of the same. Here, these little bits that way, or towards this bunker and the green site. Yeah, average course at best, exactly. It lost to the other mat, so therefore it's bad. Just all those things. Keep in mind the size for stacking, like in terms of where they point, how they line up with other bunkers. And then let's go over to 18 for a quick little bit. Just looking at some more stacking. Now these right here, this is just 3 bunkers. Obviously it does the visual work of much more than 3 smallish bunkers. The river islands are also terrible, aren't they? Just bad. I mean, look at this. It's freezer burned, very bad. No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna come down to here, and from ground level, we can see a lot of what these bunkers are doing. This here kind of throws this way, a little this way, and this way, kind of generally in and then up to the left and over a little bit towards this bunker. This part picks up a little bit from there, a little bit following that land movement. And then in here, you basically have like stacking mania. If we go up a little closer, you can see the way this part here fits into this shape. This kind of fits into this part there. What you have here fits in reasonably well with what's behind it. And each level, that then fits off with this, which fits off with those green side bunkers and this one. It's really kind of just about getting various pieces of the puzzle to fit. And you can see the way that back bunker there is also shaped and angled a little bit to pull a touch from this bunker here, as well as here, and pointing this direction and towards the green, like these other bunkers. Yeah, this is about Z bunkers. And this course, I think it has 112 bunkers, and Maddie actually guessed that randomly correctly, which was pretty amazing. So we looked at some stuff with stacking. We can go to another example here, mainly for the green side ones. This bunker here I haven't had that much time to decipher, and maybe it's a little busier than it has to be, but it still plays pretty well with this one behind it. And this over here is just glorious. This is something I don't know I would think of, or I'm not sure that I would understand. This gets kind of advanced. So we have this part here. You see the way there's this little bit of land that's actually brought down here? That is a big part of what makes this pop. So you catch this, follow up this way towards the green, and then this next finger is doing the same thing. The way these two sit together, and this is these are 2 different bunkers here, is really good. And then this stuff just kind of moves around and around and around. It's not special, it's just enough broken up movement and kind of generally flowing in this direction. This part right here is really superb. And then after that, let's see. Back to working with other bunkers. When you know something fits just right, we got hole 9. Here. There's not too much you can really tweak with this. From most angles, see this bunker still sits well. Even over here, still sits well. Over here, still sits pretty well. It's not as good, but it's quite good. You can't do too much better than this, in all honesty. It could be improved just a little, generally speaking. But if we start looking at it, you see the way this bunker here, remember scale and size, it's also quite a large bunker. But the amount of space this is filling matches quite nicely with how much is there and the general size of the whole corridor. It's pulling nicely from the edge in this way. You kind of follow that down towards where the green is. And if you notice here, the way that shape is kind of pointing this way, but the edge also plays nicely with this bunker. And this bunker here kind of lines up with this general land movement this way. This bunker is fantastic, the main short one. Also throws this way towards these. Also throws this way towards that left side bunker, and also up towards the green. This one's really, really good. And you can see the way the stuff left of the green works, just enough to kind of pick up here, and add a little something on the left side of the green. So that's how this works together. And then there's a little tiny bit in the back just for some more definition. So then also what I said about size and scale, a lot of that is just getting the bunkers to fit the land. One last hole on this course. So we're going to come over to number 12. I think it is possible to argue that maybe this bunker's a little bit too large or doesn't quite fit in that well with what comes after it here. The stack isn't quite right. It's not bad though. It's just not as good. We can see this bunker here. Normally bunkers, I mentioned, a lot of times they'll kind of sling around the dog leg like that. This bunker is kind of moving this way. It's catching this bunker here really nicely, but also pushing through this way towards these and kind of up at the same time. This bunker is extremely good. It's doing a bunch of different things very nicely, and it's about the right size for where it is too. The ones you have behind them there, see these here, if we go up a little more in terms of how they stack, this part kind of catches right there, fits. This kind of fits there. This fits reasonably well there. And they sit together well as a result. And then up by the green, we have, it's a little tough with how far in the camera is. I'll pull it out just slightly. That's probably good enough. So out here, this bunker is mainly just kind of following the land flow towards where the green is. And this bunker over here is mainly just following the land flow towards where the green is. And when I mentioned sometimes all you really need to do is fit the land, this is an example of that. Obviously, it is doing more in this case, where we can see not a ton of finger stuff there, but the shape here and here, it matches very nicely with what follows afterwards up to this bunker. This one goes up a little bit towards the green, a little finger to kind of catch off here, maybe here, but not so much. And then in terms of what's behind the green, this is a little overdone perhaps. Actually, perhaps more than a little. But everything to here, you could get rid of some of this stuff, maybe make this one a little less prominent, and you would have a similarly good, but slightly lower profile look to the screen. This is the one place where I think maybe the course was most excessive, or the most excessive. But it still all works pretty nicely together. Fits pretty nicely with there. This one kind of fills in the piece between this bunker. So because of that, it still ends up working pretty well in the end. So that's a lot of how this goes. So that's Yoho River. Good bunkers. It's a very solid golf course in general. Absolutely worth playing if you have not played it. I need to unplug the controller. We can catch the uptime. 35 minutes, maybe 40. And we'll go to my current course. And we're just going to be looking for similar things to what we've looked at in the rest of this portion. The bunkers on this course have fingers and spots. They're not quite as finger heavy or finger driven as like Mackenzie bunkers or the Yoho bunkers. It's just a different style, not necessarily for better or worse. These are a little more sculpting heavy, but that's still a lot of the same stuff is happening here. So if we come over to say number 3, which I looked at really briefly at some point, for scale, yeah. So here, this one isn't perfect, but we can see a lot of what this bunker is doing. It's stacking with this one here. A little bit catching the outside stuff, but not so much. Mostly just flowing up through this way. We can see the way it sits with what comes after it. It's very intentional that way. And the way what comes after that sits, sculpting-wise, it kind of just cuts out to the green, stacking-wise. Again, It's intentional. And then this bunker here is mostly just off to the side and filling some space. It's probably the weakest one in this hole. If I were to tweak anything, it would probably be that one. Bunker behind the green maybe as well, when the green complex is more finished. And these here, lines of bunkers, I didn't talk too much about that specifically, but you kind of use a lot of the same stacking principles with them. The way this is going from here up towards this bunker, and then this bunker, and then a little bit that other one here up towards the green. The actual sculpting and how these work is a little bit more complicated, but it's the same general principle. And then on 10, we have this line of bunkers right here, which is kind of going just from here to here to here to here, and the green's out there. That's how that works. And they also kind of help to guide you when you're down at ground level, because most of the green complex stuff is pretty much invisible. It appears to be completely at grade. So you're really relying on these bunkers to give you a sense of where you're hitting to. Kind of like forms a gate that you hit through almost. And then down here, it is blind from here. You're looking up over the bunkers, which are kind of, again, pushing this way a little bit. It's not perfect. It's probably good enough. And then 13, probably the one you've been waiting for, Narwhal. This part, I don't know how great it is. Could probably do some improvement. But from here on up, it all meshes pretty well. So now that we've looked at this, we have this larger bunker here. You can see how the shape and size and a little bit the sculpting of this one sits compared to this finger here, and then that bunker compared to here, and then up to the next bunker, a little bit up this way and out towards this bunker there, and that one goes more up towards the green. So that's a lot of how this stuff is working. But all that said, there's one last thing I want to cover in this portion. And it's that, if you remember the little bit in tutorial, in the tools portion where I was trying to take a section of land that had enough movement going on and force some bunkers into it for purposes of the demonstration, you don't always need bunkers. A lot of the time the land just has enough going on. And on this course it's even more true because some portions of it are just completely crazy, like this here. You never look at this and think, oh, it needs a bunker for some more visual interest. You just don't. Tends to be a lot of the time on crazier courses that have this. I want to look at a couple good real-world examples for this. Everybody tends to think of, a lot of the Golden Age guys, Tillinghast, Ross, Emmett, Rayner, for not having that much restraint when it comes to bunker use. Well, sometimes they do. Sometimes you don't have the option, but to be more careful. And for that, we're going to take a quick little trip to White Bear Yacht Club and look at some terrain that definitely has enough going on its own, where you don't really need to add much of anything to the visual interest and complexity of the picture. I know you've seen some of this one before, Narwhal, but the terrain speaks for itself. On hole 1, we have 1 bunker. On hole 2, we have 3 bunkers. Hole 5 here, it cuts out because we don't have a full image, but we have 2 bunkers. I would imagine there are a few bunkerless holes in this course, or very close to bunkerless. We don't have 3D ground view here, but there's a bunkerless golf hole. There's a bunkerless golf hole. This only is 1. You see the idea. And when we start to dip down into the terrain, it might look boring from above, but this is absolutely not lacking interest. The pictures are probably even better. We get a pretty good sense from the earth as well. All sorts of crazy terrain here. And the 1 bunker you do have is really dramatic. You don't need more going on than a green perched 15, 20 feet up that way on this golf hole. Or we can come to number 2, which also has some really nice crazy land movement. And then 5 is even crazier. So here's number 2. Kind of all coming this way there. Up and over. Look at this fairway terrain. Do you need more going on here? No. So in this case, it's better not to add more. And number 5, to drill the point home, right here. Nope, that was street view. We want ground view. You do not need more going on than you have here. It's blind? Oh, there must be an upper T. I didn't think this hole was blind. Yeah. Look at this. Do you need more going on here? Just be real. You don't. This is sufficient visual interest. If this isn't, please tell me what is. And there are a few good examples of courses like this in the game. Recently, we have T. Petro's Last Dollar Match Club. It doesn't use bunkers. It doesn't use some other things that he wanted to avoid crutching on. But there's plenty of land movement interest throughout that course. It's not lacking in visual stuff because it doesn't have bunkers or doesn't have certain things. There's just, you get it from other places. Old Rocky Top, O-L apostrophe for the first word, is a bunkerless course that B.S. Petty did in the 2019 CC contest. I don't know if it's been ported, but it's another example of a bunkerless course where the bunkers really aren't necessary. There's a lot of cool land movement, a great blind tee shot on hole, somewhere between 4 and 6, and a lot of other good stuff going on there. If you want to see one more quick example of a real world course that does not need more visual interest from bunkers and has some bunkerless holes on it, we got Highlands Links. I can't really show you on Google Earth because last I checked they do not have 3D ground view. You have some very crazy terrain here, really undulating. Yeah, there are bunkers, but they fit. Then we get to hole 2, which isn't that great from these pictures. But there's a lot of undulation and stuff. And the green has some good movement to it. We get down to some of the more extreme holes like 7. And I think it can go without saying that you don't really need a lot of bunkers to make this kind of thing look cool. Or 8, or 9. I think 8 is either... And 8 is not bunkerless, apparently. There's a bunker. You don't need more than that here. You just don't. Look at this green site setting. You got this huge, like, mountain hill thing in the background. The way the terrain just funnels towards it. You don't need more than that. I think 9... Maybe 9 is bunkerless, but the way it just all kind of goes around this way, you have all these kind of steps in the fairway, you don't need more than that. And then on flatter holes, like this, you want more movement? Bunkers. There you go. There's not that much going on here, so the bunkers help to emphasize and play along with that. So, that is all I have for you guys this time. Do you have any questions on particular stuff related to these topics? More TGC stuffs. What do you mean? Like, actually publishing a course? Oh, right now? Oh, I'll probably head it off because I'm going to have to get dinner. I'll most likely be on tomorrow, though. Might be doing a little bit more boring stream stuff, though. Like, streaming. And then whatever it is, the weekend the planting starts. I don't know if I'll actually have anything planted on the course by then, but probably Saturday I'm going to start fooling around with different planting ideas. And also the topics from this portion are a bit more advanced, relatively speaking, and they'll take some time to play around with, potentially, to start really getting the hang of it, and it'll click more and more over time. I mean, this is probably, anywhere between 3 and 5 good kind of meaty bunker topics all in one. And it's also why I wanted to touch on some of the other stuff with stacking and layering last time, because this really just takes them and builds on it with a few more levels. For those of you who are around, though, we might as well find someone to raid. Is Matt F on? Are there any other designers on? Yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Now is the time when also... Oh, I didn't mention... Oh, that's one big topic I didn't mention. I should probably cover that, actually. So I'm not going to be able to cut any of this out of the video. But it is that in order to get a lot of what you want with bunkers... I really wish I had this in my notes. I should have had it in my notes. A lot of the time you don't necessarily want them to point exactly where you think they should. And we can just even take, if you remember, the 9th green on Yoho. Chikola is probably an easier example than my current course, just because the bunkers on my current one don't point quite as much. You'll kind of get a feeling for this over time as well when you want bunkers to point off to the side a little bit, or more towards where you want them to go. Whether it's with fingers themselves or just other aspects like sculpting. That a big part of it is these fingers here. They're mostly not pointing directly at the green. Well, they kind of are, but not specifically. These here are mostly not pointing at the green at all. They're mostly throwing off to the left this way. But this one kind of points this way too, so it links up. This one kind of as well. And then even behind there, a slight bit that way. So they're all kind of pointing in the same-ish direction. There are other times where you might turn a specific bunker to get it to throw a little bit more, like when you want to kind of push off this way and that way. Whereas we could have this bunker, you know, and say, if the green's here, it's kind of pointing up this way, maybe this is where the green would be. But also, because of the way it's angled and sculpted and interacting with the other bunkers and land features, it doesn't have the net effect of only going this way. It kind of works more to the side. That's another... It kind of goes along with it, and I just forgot to mention that. So anyway, now that's actually all I have for you guys.